So we are done with the end of the content information, and we're going to be looking now at the exam preparation. And I'm sure you've all been waiting for this point. So let's take a look what it's all about. If you're ready to, once you're ready to register, I would say register. Um, my opinion or suggestion to you would be register as soon as you're done um, taking this course. Maybe set it for about a month or so away, because if you don't register or set a goal, most likely, as we all know, we have these great intentions, but then life gets in the way. So here's the procedure for you to do it. Of course, I'm going to go over all of these steps in detail. There's 5 steps, and they're very simple. You're going to go onto the USGB website, and you're going to find your local Prometric center. You're going to take your exam, and then you're going to email us or email me with the great news. So let's look at step by step how this happens. The first one is the fee. There are the fees. If you notice, again, this is like discount for a national member, that's a company member, $200 for a company member or full-time student. The next one is $250 for a non-USGBC national member. And also keep in mind, people, there is a cancellation or rescheduling fee of $50. So you want to avoid that if you can. Sometimes, of course, you can't. The steps to schedule the exam are quite simple. You would go onto your USGBC website. If you have any questions as you're doing this, people, you can always contact Green Education, and they'll be very happy to help you. Under credentials, make sure you're selecting the right exam that you want to register for. Then, of course, fill those instructions out on the USGBC application. You're going to receive an email from USGBC in about 1 business day, and it's going to give you an ID, an eligibility ID, and this ID will be listed on your profile homepage eventually. So then you get that number, then you follow the link, scheduling link to Prometric/GBCI. Enter your eligibility ID. I suggest you save that on your computer if you wish, but also just jot it down on a piece of paper. And then you're going to proceed with selecting where you're going to take your test and the date and the time. And these Prometric sites are all over. In case you haven't ever been to one, when you're taking your Prometric test, you could be sitting next to people that are taking their architect licensing or physician's test. So don't ever be concerned if people are finishing or starting at a different time than you. Everybody's taking a different test. You're just sitting at your very private little corral space and just focusing on your test. When you register for your test, make sure that you are using the ID. If you have a nickname, for instance, if your ID says Michael, but you're known by Mike, please register by the legal name, the name that's going to be on your ID, or else they'll turn you away. And of course, make sure it's not expired. There is also more instructions in the Green Associate Handbook under applying for the exam. It's just a little more detail, but these are the steps. And let's look at the exam information, the application processing. You can't schedule the exam date until you get that eligibility ID. It takes about a day. That's about it. And then that approval to take the test is good for 1 year. After 1 year, you have to apply again. You wait 90 days and apply a new application to GBCI. As I mentioned, for canceling and rescheduling, it's all through Prometric, because you're kind of done with USGBC by this point, and you're dealing with Prometric. So there it is. Contact Prometric if you can by midnight 3 days prior to your test. If you're not, the whole fee is lost. The 200 or 250 exam fee to USGBC is non-refundable. However, you can change or cancel your exam appointment with Prometric for a $50 fee. But if you don't do it in time, or you don't show up here for your appointment, you're going to lose the whole fee. So you don't want to do that, I'm sure. There's no fee to reschedule or cancel within 30 days notice, but please hold on to your number in a very safe place. People always ask how many exams can they take in a year, and I'm sure if you're taking this class with us and you will apply yourself to studying the way we recommend, I'm sure that you're not going to have to do that, but just to put your mind at ease, there are 3 attempts per year, and the exam fee is assessed for each attempt. So unfortunately, you have to pay for each attempt. The year starts from your first day of temping. There are additional study resources, the LEED Green Associate Handbook. One is going to be emailed to you, and there's other references that we will be sending you. Exam day, just some basic kind of information just to review with you if you don't mind. Get there early, so if I were you, I would, and if you're not familiar with where the Prometric site is, I would even take an advanced run, whenever you have the time, in the same kind of traffic situation to get to that Prometric site in a very calm, easy way. There is a tutorial, and it's really basically going to tell you how to use the computer. It's 10 minutes. And the advice is for some people, some people need the tutorial, and because it explains to them how the computer is working. It's a very simple system. But for those of you that feel a little more confident with the computer, it's suggested that you use that 10-minute tutorial time to write down everything you want to remember on a scrap of paper. They will either give you this paper, of course you can't bring it in yourself, or a whiteboard, and you could use those 10 minutes to kind of do what I call the brain dump. And it helped me a lot. I did that brain dump. I also took the tutorial, so I almost ran out of time. When I took my test a long time ago, nobody was giving me this kind of advice, but it is good advice. And it does help to write down, if 10 minutes is a long time to write down some key factors of maybe your reference codes or anything that you've had trouble memorizing. You just want to kind of dump it out of your brain and clear your brain for focusing on your test. Good idea. Your exam is 2 hours, and there is going to be 100 multiple choice questions. I did mention already these multiple choice. Please read them very carefully. Whether it says choose 1, choose 2, or 3, be careful and make your choice then. Some questions you're going to not be sure of, but it's a really good idea to answer it anyway with your best guess and flag the question. Okay, so the fifth bullet point there is every question should be answered. Use your best guess. Then flag it. You will most likely have time to go back to all of your flagged questions. And, if you've taken tests like this, you'll probably remember that a 2-hour test is a long time. Sometimes what happens is a question in the second hour can actually trigger you for a correct answer for that question you just weren't sure about in the first hour. So flag them all, and you're definitely, you're going to have time. It's a lot of time to go back to those flagged questions, and you'll probably know exactly what to answer at that time. Or maybe you won't change it at all. Maybe your first instinct was right, so be careful with that as well. There is a 10-minute exit survey, and I mentioned this a few times, the no partial credit. The scoring, it ranges from 125 to 200. 170 is passing. You do know right away, once you hit submit, you will find out if you pass or fail. And a printout is going to be given showing you the percentages in each category. Let's look at these categories a little bit. Exam content areas. The first one is called LEED process. These are a guess about how many questions are going to be on the exam. It's a guess. And basically, we've called these categories, sustainable sites, water, energy, material, and we've called it indoor environmental quality and materials and resources, but they're going to be mixed up as different categories on your test. So the LEED process is going to be asking you questions about, let's say, what is the mission of USGBC, the fact, that it's a nonprofit organization. What is the role of USGBC and GBCI? Remember, they're sister organizations. I'm going to ask you things under LEED process questions about the rating systems and also about the minimum program requirements. Those are the prerequisites to make sure 3 minimum program requirements. So they're going to ask you that. The scope of every rating system. So it's important for you to know everything you can about the rating systems that we went over in the webinar with you. You want to know which rating system is it going to be in, what's covered under each. Under this area, you'll also know about LEED, about its volunteer involvement. And I mentioned where you would note that, and particularly under regional priority points. Rating systems and updates and evolution, how it's changed from version 3 to version 4. You're going to be looking at the credit categories and know the goals and objectives. That's why I keep saying know the, concepts, know the main concepts, know then the strategies, and know the intents. You're going to be looking at the impact categories, and I've mentioned those 7 impact categories. What's the first one? Know them in order. Look at the LEED certification process, the what is silver, gold, platinum certified. Look at the LEED scorecard, review that. Look at third-party verification systems like that we've used, like OSHRAE or California Department of Public Health. The role of document submission, how, why, when, and where is that going to be important? Look at LEED interpretations, the awareness of different system versions, looking at LEED Online, for instance. And what is the online and project registration, and the fact that, of course, nothing is done on paper. A question like this, other rating systems, are there any? In general, what other rating systems are out there? And not that you have to know them, but do know that there is BREEAM, B-R-E-E-M, BREEAM. Know that there is Green Globe. Know there is Energy Star. There's a Guide to Green Building. Just understand that there are other systems out there. LEED is the best known, but yes, there are other systems out there. The next category is going to be integrative strategies. What do we mean by that? Well, we're going to be looking at synergistic thinking, right? The relationship between the credits and the team, how the team has to operate as a holistic, really thinking being throughout the whole process. Who does what? What would the architect be responsible for as opposed to the facility manager? Look at these standards that we mentioned, every one of them that is highlighted in your studies here, people. Know OSHRAE, know, of course, the Energy Star, know SMACNA. Location and transportation questions, again, these are guesses on the amount of questions, but we talked about how the importance of selecting the right site in previously developed, densely developed areas where people can get to and from work, maybe looking at brownfields or high priority designation areas. Those are areas in urban areas that might be eligible for some tax incentives, avoiding habitats like farmland or wetlands. Looking at alternative transportation, knowing that it's a half a mile for a rail system and a quarter mile for a bus, and why this is important. Next would be looking at sustainable sites, looking at what we do, the construction activity pollution prevention, that's where the sedimentation comes in, looking at the environmental assessment and how some sites are good for people and some are good for warehousing. We'll have many questions on water. Water is the second impact category, and that's going to be looking at indoor, outdoor, and process water, measuring, monitoring. How do you use less water inside? Well, we could use low-flow waterless fixtures, that sort of thing. Energy and atmosphere, of course, there's going to be a lot of questions on that, and it's going to be on climate change, energy, building load. Looking at renewable energy, what is renewable energy? What is demand response as opposed to demand response as to exposed to just conservation of energy? Knowing about what is a monitoring system, why are they necessary in a building? And looking at environmental concerns, again, we're looking at greenhouse gases, global warming potential, ozone depletion potential, resource potential depletion. The next categories are going to be materials and resources, and these are going to be looking at building reuse or partial building reuse. They'll be looking at life cycle impact, a life cycle cost, and life cycle assessment. We'll be looking at how to minimize waste. Questions will be designed about that. And purchasing declarations, looking at the purchasing policies and plans and the environmental preferable purchasing plan. Also, version 4 new, don't forget these building product disclosures and optimizations. And they were three of them. One was about the raw materials, the material ingredients, and the environmental product disclosure. And then there's indoor environmental quality. That was the last main category that we talked about. And here we're going to be looking at everything that we went over, from indoor air quality to the lighting and people having control over the lighting, and the importance of sound and acoustical design and occupant comfort in all of the ways we spoke about, controllability of systems, thermal comfort, quality of views, and that we will assess and how is that used. The next category to be looked at is project surroundings and public outreach. These are going to be looking at the environmental impact of the building environment, and the necessity of green buildings, and how do we promote, let's say, a green economy by promoting wind power, and by promoting using materials within our 100-mile radius. Looking at codes, what codes will codes be in conflict with LEED ratings, or some might. Parking codes might be, parking zoning and would be, but codes about electric and plumbing certainly would not be. So understanding that. Zoning is the one that comes into conflict sometimes. The values of sustainable energy. So and design. So know some of those, very early on I talked about LEED buildings, sustainable buildings use 18% less energy, 12% less water. Go back and study those. Know what is a hard cost. A hard cost is labor. Soft cost is the consultants. And the importance of the soft cost items in a LEED building. We need consultants. We need to think. We need time to be thinking. And life cycle cost and life cycle assessment. Know regional design, what that is, that it pertains to sustainable design in the appropriate site. There's also going to be 15 pre-test questions that are just testing the questions. Let's go over some final tips. Actually, here we're going to see what it looks like. This is what your exam information printout could look like. And this person did quite well. They got a 189 out of 200. And it'll tell you where you did well and not. Some final tips from us, okay? And then I'm going to go over a few more too. Okay, so what do you need to know? I just went over in detail what they're going to be asking you. Let's just slim it down a little bit. Instead of just the strategies for each category, you should know the main concepts, the intents, and then the strategies. It's a lot easier to memorize a strategy if you understand why the strategy is being applied. So I would put in there main concept, intent, and then the strategies. Know the terms and acronyms that we discussed over this webinar. All of the terms and the acronyms. Don't forget they're in the back of your book. Don't get carried away. There's more and more in your book, in the back of your book, than you need, so only the ones that we discussed in the webinar. Know what is a credit versus a prerequisite. A credit is a choice. You get points for that. And no, you don't get any points for prerequisites. You have to pick the right rating system so you know which prerequisites you are going to have to comply with. Know the general point structures for getting a building certified, then silver, gold, or platinum. Know what the point structures are. We're going to be giving you 5 practice quizzes, and know why certain questions you've got correct and incorrect. And if you've got them incorrect, go back and do more study. Maybe go back and Google some terms. Go back onto the USGBC website. Go to their credit library. But take the tests that we're going to send you, and then figure out why you got some right and why you got some wrong. Go to the USGBC website and just keep reading. If you're getting tired of studying, just keep kind of fooling around on their websites and look at all the supporting documentation that is available for you. And going over why this is so valuable. Now that you know everything you need to become a green associate, here are some good ideas of what your role could be in the real world. You might be on a team, and your enthusiasm and energy and education would broaden that team. You might be working on creating a library of sustainable materials for your employer, or you could be assisting with sustainability goals in your community. You could create profiles and case studies and press releases and send them in. You could serve as an advocate to your community. Stay current on all of the LEED green strategies. Keep reading, keep hearing, keep listening, keep seeing what's on the news. There's a lot these days about climate change and where we're going with that. Navigate as much as you can using LEED online. Assist and maybe just volunteer your assistance to a local community project. And you could be managing the documentation or the whole LEED certification. And there's any questions, and of course I can't ask you if there are, but here is where you would get in touch with Green Education. And then I just want to go over with you also, you have a post-course study plan, and I do want to go over that with you too. So here is the email for Green Education, and my name is Jean, Jean, and the last name is Cipriano. That's C as in Charles, I, P as in Peter, R-I-A, N as in Nancy, O. So you would email me at jcipriano@greeneducation.com, or anybody there would be very happy to help you. There's a number 2 if you'd like, and I know you have a post-course study plan. I just want to take a few more moments and go over that with you as well. Please look at that. It's saying directly after class, read through the whole manual and make notes on anything that's still fresh in your mind that we discussed during the webinar. So it's going to be harder if you wait a week to do that. Do it right away. During your initial study session, read the Read Me First document that we'll be sending you from Green Education, and then begin reviewing the remaining documents. All right, and there's you will receive these links after class. You could create study flashcards. You should create study flashcards. They would be writing down everything that you have to remember, really, keywords, acronyms, terms, standards, something that you really need to remember. When I was studying for my my LEED AP exam, I wrote down everything because I'm the kind of person that I have to write it down, I have to read it, and I have to see it. So I did this every day, and my flashcards that I created myself got slimmer and slimmer until the day of the test, when basically I just did the brain dump for 10 minutes and got it all down. You could slim it down that much for yourself. The other thing is that Green Education sells pre-printed flashcards. They're available to purchase at greenedu.com. They're a great tool for you're traveling on the train or a plane, or maybe during a lunch hour, or you want to help your partner wants to help you study, so they would be asking you questions, trying to make it fun. So they're a great tool from us. And then after 8 to 10 hours of review, we would recommend that you take your first practice exam. Be sure to take notes on the questions that you answer correctly and incorrectly, and then of course you're going to go back and figure out why. Review the course manual for the areas that were unclear and learn them. Then I would take that same test again. And when you get that test right, when you reach an 80 or more, I would then say you're ready for the next test. And I would continue that same way through all 5 tests. I would take the first test, again, take note of what you answered correctly or incorrectly, and then go back either through all of your notes here that we've provided you. Also, if you need a more in-depth understanding, go onto the United States Green Building Council's credit library and put in BDNC, and you can find every credit, and it'll give you really good, pretty clear, understandable explanations. You could also Google it. There's a lot of people online that are doing good research on LEED too. But if it's in conflict with what we're teaching, this has got to be the one that you've got to remember. Then that's after 8 to 10 hours of review. Then again, you've continued your practice, and when you've gone through all 8 tests, and you have passed, 5 tests, and you have gotten an 80 or more, then you're ready for the test. But I would have already signed up for my test and maybe make that a month or so away. Then you're going to download the Green Associate Handbook. And at the testing center, as we say, we're going to be even be given a whiteboard or a piece of paper, and take a moment to write down your brain dump formulas, acronyms, or other pieces of information at the top of your mind so you make sure that you are not forgetting any. So we are at the done and at the end of the presentation, and it was my pleasure to be with you. I don't know who you are, but I wish you all very well, and I wish you well in this very important subject of sustainability. Perhaps we'll meet again along the path. Thank you very, very much. Bye bye now.